Number 10. Death at SeaWorld. On Christmas Eve 2009, one of the most brutal orca attacks in history happened at Loro Park SeaWorld in Tenerife, Spain. Killer whale trainer Alexis Martinez was attacked by an orca named Keto, an orca that had spent its entire life in captivity. Keto was born in 1995, the offspring of Kalina, the very first killer whale born inside a SeaWorld theme park. Throughout Keto's life, he had sired many calves of his own, all born in captivity. He was one of the biggest attractions at the park, and had even taken trips around the world to entertain crowds at other theme parks. He had been to San Diego, Ohio, and even Texas before he made his permanent home in Spain. But just 3 years after living in his new Spanish home, something in Keto's mind snapped. He put the killer in killer whale. Alexis was used to working with whales. He'd been a trainer for years and had a pretty friendly relationship with Keto. But on Christmas Eve, everything went horribly wrong. The trainer was in the training pool with Keto, rehearsing for the Christmas show. Then the giant orca began to act strangely. He failed to perform his moves correctly, and Alexis was starting to get nervous. The whale then positioned itself between Alexis and the stage, and began leaning into the trainer. Keto refused to respond to his cues, then pushed Alex to the bottom of the pool using a snout. Alexis realized he was in some serious trouble, but there was nothing he could do. The orca briefly returned to the surface of the pool to take a big breath, then dove back down and took a bite out of the trainer. By the time others realized what was happening and managed to scare Keto away using a giant net, Alexis was dead. He was bleeding internally, had several compression fractures, and his vital organs were ripped apart, and he had bite marks all over his body. Number 9. Orcas versus blue whales. For the first time in history, researchers have recorded killer whales coordinating vicious attacks against the world's largest animal, the blue whale. Researchers started looking for killer whale attacks on blue whales back in 2019, and since then, they have witnessed 3 separate attacks off the coast of Australia. Each attack was coordinated by a pod of orcas, with a female killer whale in the lead. The way in which these attacks unfolded is going to make you gasp. According to researchers, 2 blue whales were killed 16 days apart in 2019, then a third in 2021. These were perfectly healthy blue whale adults, monstrous creatures that can grow to nearly 100 feet long. One of these attacks was carried out by at least 12 orcas, made up of 8 adult females, 1 adult male, and younger whales watching and learning. First, the orcas surrounded the blue whale. Then, they began to bite off huge chunks of skin and blubber. It took about an hour of relentless attacking for the orcas to weaken the blue whale enough to take it down. And once it was finally in its final moments of life, with orcas biting its head, a female orca swam into its mouth and ate its tongue as it died. After the blue whale is finally killed, 50 more orcas joined in for a massive community feeding. A whole bunch of birds showed up too, and for days there were albatrosses and petrels feeding on the scraps floating in the water. Number 8. Adrift at sea. A couple from the United Kingdom was left adrift off the Portuguese coast in late 2021 after their boat was besieged by killer whales. According to the Portuguese authorities, the couple had to be rescued after a pod of orcas showed an unusual interest in their vessel and began to attack it. It happened about 4 nautical miles from São Julião Beach. Just after 4 o'clock in the morning, the couple contacted the local lifeguard station, saying they were in need of help. When the National Maritime Authority finally found the sailboat, the couple was in good condition, but very shaken. The orcas had surrounded them, attacked their boat, and left them unable to escape. If it hadn't been for the quick action of the rescue team, the couple may have drifted out to sea and never been seen again. Number 7. Drowning the trainer. Kasatka, a 30-year-old killer whale, grew agitated when she heard her calf call out for her from a watery prison at SeaWorld in San Diego. She took her agitation out on her trainer, a man named Ken Peters. From out of nowhere, the giant orca grabbed Ken by the leg and pulled him underwater, trapping him at the bottom of the tank. This was on November 30th, 2006. Ken and Kasatka had been in the middle of a show. The whale was supposed to lift Ken out of the water on the tip of her nose. But when the pair burst through the surface, it was pretty clear there was a problem. Ken could be seen flailing wildly because his foot was in the whale's mouth. The spectators gasped in surprise, then watched helplessly as the killer whale dove deep into the pool, pulling Ken down with her. The 5,000-pound beast held him underwater for about a minute, went back up to the surface to take a breath, then yanked him under the surface once again. She did eventually let him go, but he had been only seconds away from drowning. He was left with a broken foot and puncture wounds on his leg. Funnily enough, this wasn't the first time Kasatka had attacked Ken. She tried to bite him in 1993, and again in 1999. Then, after the birth of her calf, she became more unpredictable and more aggressive. Sadly, the caged animal developed pneumonia in 2008 and was sick until 2017, when she was euthanized at the age of 40. Number 6. Hunting sea turtles. Groups of orca whales surrounding and eating blue whales alive is pretty terrifying, and so too is the disturbing scene recently caught on video, showing young orcas learning how to hunt sea turtles. Photographer and biology student Nicholas Davalos was conducting fieldwork off the coast of Isla Isabela in 2017. That's the biggest island in the Galapagos. He was snorkeling at the surface when before his very eyes he saw 3 orcas go after a pair of green sea turtles. There was 1 adult and 2 juveniles. The oldest of the orcas used the front of its head, called a rostrum, to violently spin the turtle around underwater. It was playing with its food. Then one of the juveniles grabbed a second green turtle by the fin and dragged it deep below the surface. The orcas played with the turtles for about 30 minutes before tiring of the game and swimming away. One of the turtles died from their bullying, but one did appear to survive. Even worse, the orcas hadn't even eaten the turtle that they killed. According to Robert Pittman with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, killer whales often play with potential prey, then simply move on without even bothering to eat them. Robert compared them to cats, saying killer whales just can't help but push around sea turtles, like a cat might push around a helpless mouse. Number 5. The British Yachtsman. British sailor Alan Bruce was 63 years old when he and his friend Stephen Peer were attacked by 4 orcas off the coast of Spain in the summer of 2021. According to Alan, the whales surrounded the boat, then tried to capsize it and eat him. The 4 orcas rammed and rocked the vessel, trying desperately to throw Alan and Stephen into the water. They even managed to get a video clip of the whales, a small family consisting of an adult male, a female, and their 2 babies, as they bashed away at the sides of their boat. Terrified, the sailors retreated below deck, radioed for help, and locked themselves in the bottom as the whales continued smashing against the hull of their yacht, trying to break it open. They deliberately broke the runner, leaving the sailors with only their emergency steering system. They managed to get themselves 10 miles to the nearest port at Barbade, where they could assess the damage. The yacht wasn't totally ruined, and nobody got eaten, but it certainly scared the pants off Alan and his friend. Number 4. Don BRANCHEAU. Don BRANCHEAU is one of the only people in the world who has ever been straight up murdered by a killer whale. Don was performing with an orca named Tilikum at the Orlando SeaWorld on February 24, 2010. She had been working there for several years already and was a beloved trainer. Her shows with orcas brought millions of tourist dollars into the park. But on that fateful day in February, everything changed. And ever since, SeaWorld has not held another orca show with a human inside the tank. What made the incident even more terrifying is that Dawn had developed a close bond with Tilikum. They had a great relationship. Dawn really loved the whale, and to this day, nobody knows why Tilikum snapped. They were in the middle of performing a show when, from out of nowhere, Tilikum grabbed Dawn by her ponytail, swung her around underwater like he was playing tetherball with her, and basically shook her skeleton apart. The force of the jerking motions fractured Dawn's jaw, her ear, her knee, and dislocated her arm. Her ribs were snapped, and her vertebrae were obliterated. It was as if someone had put her into a human-sized paint shaker, like you see at the hardware stores. Her spinal cord had been completely severed, and her scalp was ripped right off her head. That's pretty brutal to hear, but it's the truth about the power of these majestic animals. Dawn was only 40 years old at the time of her death, still missed by her colleagues at SeaWorld and by her family. She's buried in the Holy Sepulchre Cemetery outside Chicago, and if there's one silver lining, it's that Dawn died doing what she loved, and what she had loved to do her whole life. Plus, her accident sparked a revolution that would prohibit trainers from working in tanks with orcas, sparing anyone else this horrible fate. Then, in 2016, SeaWorld finally announced it would no longer breed orcas in captivity. In a couple of years, there may not be a single orca left in captivity in the United States. Number 3. Whale gangs. Gangs of angry orcas have been spotted attacking vessels in the Strait of Gibraltar, the waters between Spain and Morocco. These angry whales are biting rudders, purposely disabling engines, and leaving boaters stranded and afraid. In the words of Victoria Morris, the survivor of a brutal orca attack in July of 2020, the noise was really scary. The orca whales had surrounded her 46-foot boat, were ramming into it, and creating this horrible echoing noise as they communicated. They were also purposely trying to flip the vessel over. The beast attacked Victoria's boat for over an hour, ultimately killing her engine and leaving her stranded. Her crewmates had to radio for help, and like a criminal caught in the act, the whales were gone by the time authorities arrived. Marine biologist Rocio Espada says killer whales biting pieces out of boats is crazy. This is a guy who's worked with orcas most of his life, many of them since they were babies. And yet, despite scientists being baffled, there's no arguing that orca attacks are on the rise. Gangs of these creatures have been spotted throughout the last 2 years, attacking multiple boats in vicious and seemingly unprovoked incidents. The only thing scientists can think of is that the noise and contamination from the fishing industries is causing the orcas to lash out. After all, there are less than 50 killer whales left in the region. It looks like they've started defending the waters, trying to destroy any vessel small enough for them to take on. Number 2. The Boy and the Orca. In August of 2005, a 12-year-old boy was enjoying himself in the shallow water near Ketchikan, Alaska. His name is Ellis Miller, and in only 4 feet of water, he found himself on the receiving end of a terrifying orca charge. From out of nowhere, the huge killer whale was speeding directly towards him in Helm Bay. The animal was over 25 feet long, capable of moving at 34 miles per hour. Thankfully, the whale didn't eat the small child, but he did bump him, whacking Ellis with his huge head hard enough to send the boy sprawling through the water. According to biologists, either the whale was curious or it changed its mind about eating the child at the last second and aborted its attack. Gary Freitag, a volunteer with the National Marine Fisheries Service, said if the whale had wanted to take him, it would have taken him. Instead, the whale probably approached the child, thinking he was a harbor seal, one of the killer whale's favorite snacks. Then, when the whale realized it was about to eat a human child, it called off the attack. This is pretty fascinating because it shows that even in the wild, and even if whales sometimes go out of the way to destroy human boats, they still don't want to eat us. In fact, there's never been a documented killer whale attack on a human in the wild. There was only one incident in California in the early 1970s when a surfer got bit. The only fatal interactions with killer whales happen in water parks. Number 1. Whale murder. In 2018, a killer whale was accused of murder, and its 46-year-old mother was identified as its accomplice. The murder happened off the coast of Vancouver Island in Western Canada. Marine biologists witnessed a violent clash of whale versus whale, and it was seriously disturbing. A male orca and its mom were seen capturing a newborn calf by the tail, abducting it for 3 hours, torturing it, and then drowning it deep under the water. This is actually pretty brutal, even for killer whales. It's one thing to mess with other animals, but this duo literally kidnapped the baby of another orca and then drowned it for fun. The marine biologist who witnessed this despicable act called it the first confirmed case of infanticide and the only case committed by an adult male and his mom outside of human beings. Would you rather be stuck in the water with killer whales or sharks? Let us know which would be worse in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. See you next time. Bye!